Here is Lord Limbo. No time for nonsense, let's get straight to the stories. My name is Melissa. I don't talk about this much, not even with my closest friends. Honestly, I don't know if I can even explain it fully, but I feel like it's something that I need to get out, even if it's just to make sense of it myself. What happened to me wasn't just one thing, it was a series of strange, unsettling events that I couldn't shake off, no matter how hard I tried. I don't want anyone to think I'm paranoid or making up some wild story. What I experienced was real, and I still can't fully process it. It started a few months ago when I moved into a new apartment. I wasn't planning on living alone, but things fell through with the roommate I was supposed to have, and I decided I could manage it on my own. The apartment was small, a little older, but it was in a quiet neighborhood. It was a charming area, trees lining the streets, old brick buildings with their weathered exteriors, and a park just a block away. The kind of place that felt safe, maybe too safe, in a way that now I find eerie. At first, everything was fine. The place had an odd smell when I first walked in, like something musty, but I figured it was just the age of the building. I spent a week settling in, getting used to the creaks and the way the old pipes groaned whenever I used the sink or shower. Nothing out of the ordinary. I had a routine. Work, come home, cook dinner, watch a bit of TV before bed. But after a few weeks, things started to feel off. I noticed small things at first, nothing that would make anyone panic, but just strange enough to make me wonder. It started with the lights. There were 2 lamps in the hallway, and I kept finding them flickering on and off. I thought maybe it was a loose wire or an electrical issue, but no matter how many times I tried to fix it, they continued to do this. Then, one evening, after I'd returned from work, I found the lamps on, even though I'd specifically turned them off when I left. That's when I started to get an unsettling feeling, but I brushed it off. Maybe I had forgotten, or maybe the neighbor had come by and turned them on. But the feeling didn't go away. A week later, I was walking home from the store when something even stranger happened. It was late, about 9 p.m., and I was cutting through the alley behind my building, a shortcut I had used countless times. But this time, I felt like I wasn't alone. I couldn't see anyone, but I had the distinct feeling that someone was walking just behind me, keeping pace with me. I turned around a few times, but the alley was empty, as it always was. I didn't think too much of it at first, but as I reached the door of the building, I saw something I couldn't explain. There was a man standing across the street, staring at me. He wasn't doing anything, just standing there, almost unnaturally still. I couldn't make out his features well because of the distance, but there was something about his posture that felt wrong. His shoulders were stiff, his head tilted slightly, and he didn't move. Not even when I stepped closer to the door. I quickly went inside, locking the door behind me, and tried to shake off the feeling of unease that settled in my stomach. That night, I couldn't sleep. It wasn't just the man, it was the silence. I hadn't heard a single sound after I'd entered the building, no traffic passing, no voices, no footsteps. It was as if the entire world outside had gone still, like everything had paused just for me. I kept hearing creaks from the floor above, but it didn't sound like the usual building noises. It was heavier, slower, almost deliberate. The next morning, I was exhausted but tried to go about my day as usual. As I left the building, I noticed something else. There were 2 small, mud-streaked handprints on the window of my door. I couldn't explain how they'd gotten there. I hadn't noticed them the day before, and no one had visited me. There wasn't even a hint of rain to account for the mud. I didn't think it could be anything to worry about, but now it was clear, something strange was happening. Then, the attempts began. I remember the first time it really hit me. It was around midnight, and I had just finished watching a movie. I was getting ready to go to bed when I heard a knock at the door. Quiet, light tapping. I wasn't expecting anyone, and I hadn't invited anyone over, so I stood still for a few moments, trying to listen. The knocking came again, a little louder this time. I approached the door, but I didn't open it. I pressed my ear to the wood, straining to hear something, anything, that would explain why someone would be knocking at that hour. But there was nothing. Just silence. I opened the door slightly, just enough to peek out, but no one was there. I thought maybe I'd just imagined it, or perhaps it was a prank. But the next night, it happened again. The knocking was even more persistent, and I heard whispers this time, low voices I couldn't make out. I didn't recognize the sound, but it chilled me to the bone. I tried calling the police, but when they came to check, there was no sign of anyone. No fingerprints, no footprints, no evidence of anything strange. They chalked it up to a possible prank or an unfortunate mistake, and for a while, I convinced myself I was just overreacting. But things didn't stop there. It escalated. Over the following weeks, I began to hear footsteps outside my apartment, sometimes in the hallway, sometimes on the staircase. I'd wake up in the middle of the night to the distinct sound of someone pacing back and forth just outside my door. I would get up, open the door, and find nothing, only to hear the footsteps return minutes later, or hours later, as though whoever was there had been waiting for me to open it. On one occasion, I was home early, sitting at the kitchen table when I heard a loud crash in the hallway. I immediately ran to check it out, and found nothing broken, nothing out of place. But the floor was damp. There was no water leaking from anywhere, but the floor was soaked, as if someone had spilled a large amount of water all over it. I could see the marks of boots, muddy prints trailing through the hallway, and leading to my front door. At that point, I stopped sleeping there. I couldn't bring myself to. I started staying with friends, and when I went back to pack up some things, I felt as if the apartment itself was watching me. I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on me from the corners of the rooms, from the shadows. Eventually, I moved out. I didn't even care about the lease. I couldn't stay another night. The strange events, the footsteps, the knocking, none of it made sense. I didn't have any answers, but I knew I had to get out. There's still a part of me that wonders if the apartment had something to do with it, or if I was just the target of something else I couldn't explain. I don't know if the person who'd been outside my door was ever real, or if the mud on my windows was just some coincidence. I've never told anyone the whole story. I'm not sure if I even understand it myself. But I do know one thing: sometimes, we can feel like we're being watched. And sometimes, there's more to it than just a feeling. Story 2. My name is Helena. I don't like to think about this, but it's been haunting me for a while now. Something happened to me a few months ago that I can't fully explain, and every time I try to move on, it feels like it's still following me. I feel like I need to share it, if only to get it off my chest. It all started when I moved into a new apartment. The place was old but nice, tucked away in a quieter area of town. The building was one of those with long hallways and creaky floors, which I found charming at first. I'm not usually one to get spooked easily, so I thought nothing of it when the elevator would sometimes stop on random floors or when the lights flickered a bit. But then I noticed someone would always be near my apartment. It started with the footsteps. Every time I walked out into the hallway, I'd hear someone behind me, walking at the same pace. I'd turn around, and the hallway would be empty. It wasn't just a one-time thing, it happened more than once. Always at night. I'd get up for water, and the footsteps would start again, just behind me. I began to wonder if I was being paranoid, but it felt different. It wasn't just an eerie coincidence. It was deliberate. One night, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. I'd just gotten home after work, and there was a small knock at my door. A soft, almost hesitant knock. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I stayed quiet, not answering. But the knocking came again, louder this time. I don't know what made me do it, but I opened the door a crack, just enough to see who was there. No one. The hallway was empty, but there was this cold breeze coming from somewhere I couldn't place. It felt wrong, like someone had been standing there. I was already feeling on edge, but what happened the next night still makes me shiver. I woke up to a tapping sound on my window. I live on the second floor, and no one should have been able to reach my window, especially not at that hour. The tapping continued, getting faster, more insistent. I was terrified, but when I checked outside, there was no one there. Just the shadows of the trees swaying in the wind. The final straw came a week later. I had gone to bed early, but I couldn't sleep. It was like I was being held awake by something. And then I heard it, voices. Soft whispers, barely audible, coming from the living room. I tried to tell myself it was just the wind, maybe the walls creaking. But it wasn't. The whispers became clearer, like someone was talking right outside my door. I grabbed my phone, ready to call the police, but before I could, the voices suddenly stopped. I couldn't stay there anymore. The feeling of being watched, the constant tapping, the whispers, everything had crossed a line. I packed my things and left that same night. I didn't care about the lease or anything. I just had to get out. I still don't know who or what it was. The weird thing is, when I went back the next day to grab the last of my things, everything seemed perfectly normal. The apartment was just quiet. Almost too quiet. The landlord seemed puzzled when I told him why I was leaving, but he didn't question me. Maybe he knew something I didn't. Whatever happened, I never went back. And I'm not sure I'll ever be able to explain it. And that's it for now. Some things can't be explained, and maybe that's for the best. Stay safe, stay aware, and remember, sometimes the scariest things are the ones we can't see. Until next time.